Hi, everyone. Welcome to Intuit Talks. We are here weekly, and today we have a guest who is a huge inspiration to me, Suzy Batiz. I'm really honored and excited to have her here today. And as we're waiting for her to join us, feel free to jump into the comments and let us know what is currently lighting you up the most. And here she is. Hi.
Hello, hi.
Hi.
Hold on, it's taking a second to connect. There you go. Hi, how are you?
I'm so good and so happy and honored and excited to have you here today. How are you?
Oh, same. I'm really good. It's a beautiful day. I've been spring cleaning, like cleaning out my email inbox. I had emails in a folder in my emails to do from a year ago. Isn't that crazy?
That's amazing that you're actually going into them.
Oh yeah, that's what we're teaching this discovery in Alive OS. This lesson this week is clearing away all the clutter.
Oh, well, I guess I'll be getting that today. It dropped today, the reading, actually, or yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah, I'm in the training. I don't know if you know that, but I'm in it. I
Oh,
asked a question, I think, a couple weeks ago, and we had been reaching out to you to be on Intuit Talks, but I didn't know if that would happen. And then I signed up and it all worked out perfectly. So I'm loving the training and I'm gaining so much from it. And I'm a business owner myself and a creative. And so I think one of the things that has drawn me to you the most is that you're also an inspired, successful entrepreneur, creative, but you also prioritize mental, emotional, and spiritual health. And I relate to some of your story. So I feel like we need more and more role models and roadmaps like this in this world, because I feel like I'm personally running a business from a certain place and learning how to do it from a place that feels more true to who I am. And I love the way you teach from that place. So thank you for being out there and doing it and inviting us to be a part of it.
you're so welcome. It's really, for years I had like my spiritual world, I had my business world, and then I had my family, right? And they were all completely separate. None of those really merged. And what I realized is I was taking care of these silos when really they're all completely connected, but I had segregated them in my mind. And once I decided to include everything, to actually become inclusive with my beliefs and realize that, there is no difference between business and spirituality. It's all really the same. There's no difference. The reason, my family can be merged into that as well. And that's whenever I started feeling more complete as a person and as an individual.
Mm. So
Yeah.
what was like the turning point for you when you realized that segregation of these different parts of your life and any patterns? I know you talk a lot about dissonance and like dissonant patterns. What was the turning point where you really saw these patterns and these segregated aspects like causing more suffering, and that you wanted to weave them together?
Yeah. So I remember once, I was going down to the jungle, doing a lot of plant medicines, and I was sort of, I lived in Dallas. 18 years ago, I used to run a static dance in my living room.
Oh,
But it was a bunch of hippies, and it was a very closed group. And and then I would put on my suit the next morning and go to work, right? So I had my work life. And, I was going down to the jungle, doing plant medicines and things. And someone said something to me like, "Oh, you're that family that does ayahuasca." And I remember being like, "Oh," like getting called out, like, "Oh my God," that was way before it was cool or popular. And I remembered feeling a little bit of shame. And whenever I first started going down to Peru, my employees, like three or four of them, this is how new it was, back when I started Poo-Pourri, is I would leave the company.
I think
And
oh, there you are.
there I am, yeah. Um, so anyway, I would leave my company and come back, and everybody would be like, "How was it?" It was so intimate. And then as we got bigger, I started segregating, and I just realized that it was like I didn't feel like anybody knew who I was, and that I was living a secret life, and it just didn't feel good to me. And I started talking more within my employees and bringing in different alternative coaches and explaining more about spirituality. I started, that was before Instagram really, but I would post some things on Facebook, but I would have meetings. I would bring in feng shui people. We would sage the office. We would sign contracts on Mercury retrograde. So I started bringing in some of these principles I actually believed in into the office. And it was amazing how curious people were and how much, they were open to hearing. It was kind of like woo woo in my world, but still there was a fascination. And what I realized is that people were much more accepting of these beliefs, so there really was nothing to hide.
Mm-hmm.
And I just became more and more and more myself. And people are always like, "Oh my gosh, you're so authentic." That's because there aren't those parts of myself that I'm trying to pretend in one area and not in another. I now can be whoever I am, wherever room I'm in. It doesn't really matter whether I just interviewed yesterday to be on a really big national show, but I mean, I will be who I am with my spiritual beliefs and my practices. It doesn't really matter anymore.
Yeah, I just heard your podcast on the Remarkable People one.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that conversation. And so I don't know, maybe the thing you're being interviewed for, maybe that type of conversation will or won't come up. And I'm sure you would be prepared for that either way. But like I said, I think one of the things you said, he was like, "I can't believe you're talking about these things. Like, it's just so blasé or casual." And you're like, because these things need to be talked about. And like, I think whether it's shame about how we live or shame about things that have happened to us, it really eats at our mental health, our spiritual health, and then that starts to kind of sprinkle out into the collective. So I really think that's so important.
Completely. We only hold, my mentor taught me about writing. He said that, and I, for my life of me, cannot figure it out. I thought he said it was Anne Lamott, but that she had a quote: "Whatever you're most ashamed of, paint it red." And yeah, it's like just highlight it, and then all the shame goes away from it. Talk about what you learned from it. People can, that's the reason I talk so openly about these things. People can relate. "Oh my God, that happened to me too," right? And there's an immediate relatability, but also it just dispels all the shame from it. I'm not going to run around hiding this big secret that I was molested. And I remember I was in this cool, loft in Brooklyn, and they had these exposed pipes, and it was this real white loft, but they had painted all the pipes red. And I remember going, "That's it, like paint it red, whatever we're most ashamed of, just bring it forefront and center."
Do you feel like you've like excavated all shames in you, or do you still have some shames that pop up?
Um, in this moment, I'm trying to think what I'm ashamed of.
Not that you have to share it necessarily, but do you still like with
Yeah.
all this work, do you feel like you've kind of excavated all the major like shame points?
Yeah, there's still an area where I find myself a little embarrassed, and that's around that I don't have a partner, and it's so weird that I would find that embarrassing because I love my freaking life. Like, I love it. I've never one day in the 6 years I've been separated and divorced laid my head down and thought I need someone in my bed. Like, it's just not a conscious thought. And I think that mostly comes from every one of my friends, like, "You need to be dating, there's a lot of pressure from the outside world." And I'm not blaming that on other people, but I notice sometimes I feel embarrassed about that. So I'd love to dive into that and work on that. So thank you for asking me.
I can relate to that. I've been divorced, well, legally a couple years, but it's been 4 years since I left. I'm in LA now, New York, and came back to LA. And yeah, I also share that. But I feel like I'm shifted. The work I'm doing with you, actually, I started with an EMDR therapist several months before I came into your training. And I was like, is this going to be too much to Abby? And she's like, no, it's perfect. I was like, great. And I feel like there's so much getting shifted that
Mhm.
probably if I met someone right now, it wouldn't work out in 6 months anyway. I don't want to put that out there, but so much is changing right now. And
Yes.
such, I mean, I can't even put words to some of it. And I think it's the work in Alive OS combined with the EMDR, combined with some big changes happening in my business. It's just all at once. And I am having this moment, and I know you've talked about this, where like it's sometimes I feel blissful and sometimes I feel really anxious and overwhelmed by it. But I'm almost like on the shore, seeing myself in the ocean and like seeing like the old narrative and the new one coming and playing out at once.
Yes.
It's very there's like it's cool and I'm super lucid with it, so that's, and I'm in my body, so that's like all breakthroughs for me to stay in my body through that. But it's been intense in moments too, where I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been doing, and it
Yes.
hurts. Like it doesn't feel good. I feel like the pain of that, and it's been difficult to witness, but also exciting because I've stayed in my body and lucid through it.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an accomplishment. Like, do you know how much people dissociate and, detach from processes like that? Usually through drugs or alcohol or online shopping or, social media or,
I'm
whatever.
still,
It's like,
I probably still do some things, I'm sure.
well, and you know what? I was recently, I was sick last week and I was talking with my ex-husband and I said, man, when you're in pain, like, just do it. One of my friends said that there's he's in Toronto and his name's Neil Perushka and he's a big author. He has some great books on happiness. And he said that in his neighborhood in Toronto, there's like 4 weed shops just in his block. And he was kind of, like, oh, I can't believe it. And I said, you know what? Let people have it. When they're in pain, like let them do, because the other side of that growing up in a dysfunctional family is violence and abuse. And, let's let people have whatever coping mechanisms. No, it's not our choice, but let's let people cope how they need to cope when they're in pain. Because pain can be all consuming, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And yeah, I remember I was on antidepressants for 7 years, between 30 and 37. I was in such deep depression.
Mm.
Like, I just almost cry right now thinking about it. So underwater. And I get so emotional. I do believe that they saved my life. I don't believe that it's a long-term solution for people. I believe I was on them longer than needed, but I had postpartum depression and that pain can be debilitating. It's just all consuming.
Yeah. And when you're in it, it's like making your bed is like a huge deal, you know? Um,
Yes, completely.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and I say that to people because, I've been a yoga teacher and kind of health coach for 16 years, and now I'm a full-time business owner and created the Moon Deck, and that's also shifting. And I also still teach trainings different than yours because we're working with the deck. Um, but in that, I'm finding that like even in my business, the stuff we're talking about shows up there as well. And that's what my EMDR therapist, she's like, yeah, people who are business owners, this like your stuff comes up there too, like whether it's in the relational realm or how I give and receive or how I lead, and learning how to manage my own emotions and triggers in that. Like, do you have any recommendations for fellow creatives and business owners for how to kind of bring that synergy into place when we're operating in a business? And then if you can add to that, like if you think about the world we are navigating our business, and it is like a more masculine based world that we live in, and you also are someone who's bringing transformation and intuition into it where it's like a more feminine thing. So do you feel like we're building towards that construct even though we're within the current construct? Is there a way to really shift that?
You know what I find fascinating about that? One of my friends is the most left brain analytical. He's one of the top supply chain people in the world. And His company at one point was worth $52 billion, more than General Motors. Just really successful left brain guy. And he was in my company helping me because he's just a dear friend with our supply chain. Supply chain means, um, whenever you have a bottle, Walmart places an order. The supply chain is everything it takes to get that bottle onto the shelf at Walmart, all the way down to the manufacturing, to the raw goods, making the bottles. So that entire process is called supply chain. And we were looking at all the numbers, and his team was like, well, the numbers say this. And he would say, I know, but my gut tells me there's something else. And I would hear him, and very masculine guy, And I told him later, his name's Sanjeev, and I said, hey, Sanjeev, I noticed that you keep saying your gut, your gut. And he's like, yeah. He's like, numbers can only give you so much, but you have to follow your instinct about whether you think something's right or wrong. Data is only going to give you so much information, that most of what you're navigating off of is your gut. So to hear someone that's so hyper masculine, hyper left brain still operate, and most really successful people that I know operate off of their gut. Okay, they wouldn't be where they are now, and they also back it up with data. So that's what I do. It's like, okay, I can have, is this pausing when somebody texts me, or is it okay?
Not when it texts. No, you're fine. Just if
okay.
calls come in, yeah.
Okay, so it just keeps dropping down on the screen. I just want to make sure. So, it's like you have your intuition, and what I do is I operate off intuition, but then I have my team come and give the data that supports that gut feeling. So that, I'll tell my team, my gut says something's not right. I want to look into this. And so they go and they'll give me all the data to prove that out. Which helps navigate people that aren't particularly in their gut. Okay, so that's one way you bring it into business, is like, something doesn't smell right, something doesn't feel right, I got a hunch here, would you be willing to investigate this? Or you investigate it and bring it back to the table. And generally it's always like, it's exactly what I thought. And that starts helping people in the organization understand how to trust their gut. What I've seen in most companies is the higher ups, the owners of the company, trust their gut and operate off intuition, but it's not respected down. And it's not taught down in the organization, in the typical hierarchical type organization. So I make it a point in my company, well, whenever I was running it, I'm not really running it anymore, but to really teach them about one of our commandments is to trust your gut. And it's like really and some amazing things have happened in our company because of gut hunches, because we take it really seriously, but it really comes from the top down, being able to share that is how you navigate. And here's another thing that's a trick there, is that most people at a higher level, it happens so intuitively that they don't even notice, like Sanjeev didn't even notice he was talking like that. But I pointed out, like, listen to your words. And he was like, oh, yeah, of course. I kind of feel like those numbers didn't feel right. Something feels like something else is there. Well, that's intuition.
Yeah. And so did you cultivate that environment, like amongst your employees, to, like, because you said you brought coaches in. Did you say that for them?
Yeah, I brought lots of coaches in over the years, and just shared these. We had a thing whenever, pre-COVID, called Lunch and Learn. And every week we would bring somebody in, whether it's essential oils, whether it's intuitive training. We've brought in tarot card readers. We've brought in feng shui people. We've brought in, it's all different kinds of people every week. And it was optional. We bought you lunch, and you could listen to whoever was in giving their hour-long lecture. It was really fun. So we would bring in lunch, and you would eat your lunch as you learned whatever this was. So it became kind of a fun community type gathering.
Right. That feels like it also connects to an earlier question about the balance of the masculine and feminine, like in today's kind of paradigm. But I feel like more and more people who are taking this approach, it will ripple out into the way that business is done and living is done, I hope. I mean, I really think, like, sometimes, when it comes to self-development and self-love, people have questioned me, like, well, it's so focused on self. It's so self. And I'm like, well, yeah, there's sometimes we have to know when to come back out. But imagine a world where self-love and acceptance was like how everyone really operated. I think we would see a really different world. So to me, that just comes back to how important. I know you use the symbol of the Taurus, like really coming to that place of personal, I guess, accountability, and then activating that and as you dissolve the old patterns. And I love that analogy you said too about the old operating system still being there as you take the new one on top. It reminded me of like how like a forest can burn, or seeds
Mm-hmm.
can burn and become a part of the soil, but then all
Yes.
the new growth comes out of it.
Totally, it's so fun. And, let's get real. If there's some guys on here, close your ears. But one of my friends, we've had patriarchy's had its run at being the dominant power. Not that, I do believe in fully balanced masculine and feminine. But one of my friends the other day said, let's face it, the penis has done its best job. It's like, oh my God, that's so good. She goes, let's bring some feminine power in. And I'm not a feminist in that men are bad at all, but I am about bringing things into balance. And, it's the yin yang, there's so many women, even in business, that operate from such a masculine, and I used to do that, I operated from such a masculine, it's what I thought I had to do to succeed in business and to get ahead. You just push and go through, and, it's all about running. And just recently, I got caught up in another version of that, and I'm just redoing my entire organization, my personal, around Suzy Batiz, because I realized that it was just pushing too hard, everything. And I was like, nope, stop that. I need ease and flow and space, and that's where I grow best. So I still get caught up in it because it's in our society. It's the way you're supposed to operate,
Do you think it's
supposedly.
necessary to scale?
I think there's always, if you think about even the feminine aspect of delivering a baby, there's always the time to push.
Mm,
Um, but it's not, you don't push the whole time,
right.
and that's the difference. And I'm still unwinding, even in my nervous system, that old habit of pushing all the time. It's just like, let's go, 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 go. Number one, it's not sustainable. Number two, it doesn't help. I'll be talking about this Thursday night, but I realized that I haven't been in flow. And it's because of systems I had set up around me. So once I broke those systems and started clearing up clutter, which you're going to read in this discovery this week, um, all of a sudden, the phone call that, like, I'm in the middle of this big project that just seems so big. And I'm thinking, how am I going to do all this? And of course, the guy that I was introduced to 2 months ago that happened to have the phone call does exactly what I need. And that's when I was like, I've cleared away this stuff. So now that magic from the universe can start happening. So the thought is we have to go and push and make things happen. The other concept is I can create space and let what needs to come to me come to me. And it really does. And I think there's a balance in both, right? So right now I'm in this project, like, okay, let me let things come to me, what needs to happen. At some point when we get ready to launch the project, like film production and going, that's the go energy, that's the delivery out to the world. But right now it needs to be more spacious and collaborative and just creative, and to keep that energy. It's hard to do that with that go energy.
Yeah, I'm also unraveling that. My dad is amazing, but he also, not but, and he's an incredible businessman, and he's helped a lot, but it's also like the source of my anxiety in some ways. So it's this interesting untangling of taking the gift and the gems that are sort of at the foundation of running a business, but like really needing to claim my own way of doing things. And I'm just learning how to really trust that again.
Yeah.
Which is why when I saw your program, I was like, fuck yes, absolutely. I'm signing up. Like, this is exactly what I need. There was like no doubt in my mind. And that, even that energy, be like, oh, that's, the hell yes. I mean, I don't know how I feel about those memes if it's not a hell yeah. Like, I don't know if it's always that diluted, but it is a difference though of like when there's a hell yes. I guess, yeah, maybe you could say something about that. What happens in that? It feels like, do you believe in that where it's only the hell yes? And I know you call it alive ideas, right?
I do. So what is so funny, my one of my children has some their particular challenge in life is making decisions. Because they're an artist and a really impeccable artist. I mean, I'm talking fine art, which you have to have that skill, right? There's no master has ever not been impeccable. But also with that come some challenges, like everything has to be perfect and I have to make the right decision. So, again, when we talked about I don't know if you were in Alive Abundance, but like the law of balance, it's like everything is balanced, and they'll call me and be talk about this particular decision and that it's so important. And what I always go back to is you can't do it wrong. Like there's just really no way. So if you can kind of relax back into for example, I mean, this isn't to not face reality, but if you think about it right now, our lungs are going, our heart's beating, our brain's processing information, our eyes are seeing, your throat's working when you swallow the water. Like you don't have to tell any part of your body to do that, right? So and this is my practice, if I can just start relaxing and noticing when my body goes towards something, that's when the hell yes is, and stay out of my mind.
I love that.
Okay?
It feels like balm just hearing you say that. My body's like relaxing just hearing you say that.
Isn't it nice? And it's like, I remember Byron Katie used to say, what time do you get out of bed in the morning? She's like, when my body rolls over and my feet touch the floor. It's like, it's like, can I just relax in that and knowing? And also, the one thing I know about my child is that whenever they have a hell yes, they always take action. And I know from my experience, I do too. Anything other than that hell yes it's got to be a no because I'm not taking any action on it.
Yeah, yeah. I have a couple of those going on right now. Things that like, and I just know it's a timing thing. It's just kind of
Completely.
like, it's a wait. And I don't like waiting all the time. And something that came alive this week with the dissonance week was like I'm in a couple of dissonance situations that are just there's like I just have to move through them. And
Yes.
And then when dissonant things happen, it's like, oh, I saw myself this week add more dissonance to the dissonance. And
Yeah.
that my work is like, okay, there's a couple, I can remove myself from dissonant people or things sometimes, and then sometimes not. But I don't need to get so activated, which is something that happened for me on Saturday or Sunday, where I'm now like just pouring more dissonance into the dissonance, and then like I'm affected, everyone around me is affected. So that's something that got like really clear for me this week in the work we were doing.
That's so good. One of my friends has a saying. She says, and this is what helped me. I'm moving away from some dissonance tomorrow. And it's not the person. It's literally a system that I brought in, and it's just another layer of someone that it's not working, because for a person that wants more ease, if you think about it, I want more ease and space, yet I bring in more people that create more complexity. Like it's just, that's dissonant, right? So no one can win in that situation. But she says, what is the choiceless choice?
Mm.
And I love this. And I was like, what do you mean? And she said, well, what choice do you already know that you're going to make? Like it's a choiceless choice. And I knew that I was already going to move away from this person. Now it's just management. When am I going to do it? How am I going to do it?
Yeah.
Because the choice has already been made. I'm trying to make it work, and then it just becomes not, that friction becomes more and more and more and more and more and more. And we keep trying to, it's like a weird dance instead of going, oh, I already know that I don't, want this person in my sphere, not because they're bad, just because of that. It's just adding more complexity with someone that wants more ease isn't good in the recipe.
Yeah. So what point did you, because I imagine with some of the stuff you've shared of what you've gone through, I have some parallels to that as well. Some, not all, but some. And all my trauma is very interrelational from when I was born, pretty much. And that's what I'm working on in the EMDR right now. Um, and so that's where it comes up for me a lot, including in relationship to myself. So for you, when did you get to a point where you really started to trust that inner authority, or trust your ability to even discern and then pivot?
I'll tell you, the more that I've fired my people pleaser, um, you
Fire.
know, fired her. Yeah, she's in retirement. Um, she still tries to pop out and do the job every once in a while, but I'm like, no,
Did you actually
sister.
have a ceremony with that, or it was like an internal thing?
It was an internal thing. I was literally, so one thing that Gay and Katie Hendricks teach are these personas. They're these protective mechanisms, these masks that we put on for survival. So one of them is the people pleaser, right? And it's like, well, if you're happy, if I can make you happy, then somehow everything's going to be okay, right? And I think a lot of us probably on here have versions. Most people have versions of that. Because we're conditioned. Most people are conditioned that way in school. Make the teacher happy, make your professor happy, make the policeman happy. It's like that. We need to make everybody happy, or at least,
Codependency is like groomed in us.
yeah. So the more I have given her like a new job, for example, like she's social director. So whenever I'm at an event, my people pleaser can come out, and she can dazzle and shine everyone, and it's all great. But she's not full-time front and center anymore. And then whenever she does come about, so what happens in a lot of dissonant situations, I really become more worried about the other person. They're going to be mad at me. They're not going to like me anymore. I brought them on and now I'm going to have to let them go. Some of those thoughts that are happening in the background, which my people pleaser really latches onto. She's like, oh yeah, they're not going to like you. So she's feeding a lot of that. And whenever I can just really feel into my own truth, the truth is, that choiceless choice is that I need to move away. Um, that's when I notice ease and flow return back into my body and my being. And when I'm not so concerned about the other person, you know, um, over my own feelings. And that's where what I teach, as you know, is about your energy is your greatest resource. And I'm always constantly being reminded myself,
Mm.
that my energy level is my greatest resource. But what happens is these patterns are like old rubber bands, right? And it's just like we can be whipped right into it, not even know we're in it. Like, how'd that happen again? Okay, great. I woke up to that. And over time, that becomes a little, tighter, where it's not such a whiplash pattern, where you can start controlling it a little more.
Yeah. Can you just explain to people that, because and the off teachings that I offer when I teach a lot about intuition, it's something I think we teach what we need and have learned ourselves. That's definitely been a big journey for me, is moving out of sometimes debilitating self-doubt when I was younger and into my young adulthood years. And something I'm really passionate about now, not doing that because it's painful to live in that place. So something I offer that you are sharing in a new way in your training is the idea of resonance and dissonance. I share about that when it comes to intuition. Can you share more about the difference between resonance and dissonance with regards to work, intuition, or wherever it feels most alive for you right now, and maybe even how it feels in our body? And if you have any rituals that like kind of bring it to life.
Yeah, so resonance is when two energy waves come together that are the same wavelength and the same pattern, they create more energy together than they do apart. So it's not 1 + 1 = 2, it's 1 + 1 = 3, 4, 5, 6. Whoever knows the level of the resonance, okay? And dissonance is the exact opposite. And dissonance is when you put two energy waves together. Again, not one's bad and one's good, not one's toxic and one's an angel. You know, it is literally, they're just different energy waves together. They create less energy together than they do apart. So that means you literally have less energy in that dissonance. It's like noise canceling headphones. How noise canceling headphones works is you have you put them on and then it creates a wave that's dissonant from the outside environment. So it creates nothing. So instead of having some sound, you have no sound. Okay, so you literally have less sound with that dissonant pattern than you did before. And that's how dissonance works. What people don't understand with that is that whenever people say like this job's killing me, this relationship's killing me, you know, they're bitching or complaining about a relationship, that's literally draining your lifeless energy. Okay, and it is draining. And when you're in a dissonant pattern, it is almost impossible to use your intuition because you don't have all of the available energy to you. Okay, you have less energy available to you than you would if you're in resonance. When you're in resonance, you actually have more openings and more energy available to you. And that's just the truth. You know, have you ever been with a business person and you two get together and you're like, oh my God, you get chill bumps, you feel like you've known them forever, you're riffing and you come up with like the most amazing idea in like 10 minutes. You know, and you're like, how did we just do that? You know, and that's resonance, okay? Because that energy together created something that couldn't have been created with you two apart. So the more you have more access also to intuition, to intuitive hits, like, oh yeah, that feels right. No, not that direction. So what I really focus on in my relationships is building resonant teams. So if I'm doing a project, I can feel if there's resonance in the room. I was recently going to do a project with some people and they were hype people. You know how they're like trying to sell you on something that's always been this best idea and it's really great. You know, that energy. And I'm like, yeah, but it's false. It's not true energy. It is a sales pitch. And I noticed, like, we're going out at lunch and we're like hyped up on caffeine. We're smoking, you know, and I mean, I smoke every once in a while, but I'm not there. I'm smoking a real cigarette, like a, you know, Lucky Strike or whatever. I mean, the ones that aren't, what are the ones? Anyway, I don't know. They're in a blue box.
No,
American Spirit.
I saw the herbal ones you rolled because during the Texas, my operations manager lives in Texas, so she got hit with that storm as well. Yeah. And I was like, what is she rolling? What is that? What's the smoke blend? I want it.
Yeah, it's my future daughter-in-law in a month. It's Tuatara. I'll tag you on that. But she has amazing smoke blends. But I've noticed, but that's what I usually smoke. But this, I'm smoking nicotine. We're drinking coffee. We're going out. We're having a couple drinks at night. I don't even drink alcohol. And all of a sudden, like, they leave, and I was like, what was that? Like, that was not resonance. It was a false energy, okay? So resonance is, I don't need all of that. And, you know, since they left and I disassembled that whole relationship, you know, none of those patterns had happened. But it was, we needed some other outside energy sources because the resonance wasn't there. When resonance is there, you're not dependent upon those outside sources to actually bring you energy. Isn't that interesting? Yeah. These are long answers to your questions, but
I know, I love it. It's nourishing to have these conversations, and I know everyone here is getting a lot out of it. And I speak about it in different ways, and you've brought another spin to it that I really appreciate because I just feel like I'm always deepening my knowledge, and I think you said you're a transformation junkie, and I'm like, that's what I am too. I'm like a deep digger. Sometimes I need to know when to stop. but
Yeah.
okay, I've dug in that hole long enough. I don't do that as much now, but yeah, but it's also the capacity that I have. And I think, coming back to partnership, it's kind of like, that's the capacity I want. And, not
Completely.
everyone's built that way. So it might take, there might be some different alignments that need to happen before I can embrace a partnership that has that depth and capacity that I need. Because sometimes I feel like people might be attracted to that in the beginning, and then as it kind of gets dialed in, it's like it's not as much, because it's yeah, something since my divorce that got to the top of the list was spiritual foundation. It doesn't have to be like mine, but it's important, because to help us like perceive in this way, emotional range and capacity. Like emotional range, capacity, spiritual foundation, and a lot more. But those are like things that got moved up to the list.
That's so good. And what are Gay says you can have your 3 must-haves, and then everything else is off the table. And then you can have your 3 deal breakers. Do you know your deal breakers?
Great question. Yeah, of course, like chemistry for me needs to be there, like physical, mental, emotional. I'm like a physical person, but I'm also a sapiosexual. Like I'm like all of it. So I'd love for that like compatibility to be there on that level. So if that's not there, I'm not giving you a direct answer. I don't know. I have to work on that one.
Yeah,
But I think, for sure, honesty, like I won't like kind of lying and dishonesty and not like open, honest communication is definitely a deal breaker. Like I will get, and I've learned this about myself as I've matured, sometimes when I'm feeling anxiety in a situation or relationship that's not feeling honest, my body starts to tell me like I won't last in a relationship like that, or I'll get depressed and anxious if there's not honest communication happening, because I feel it on some level. I just didn't know it was happening in my past or how to trust that. Now I know what that feels like in my body when something's off because of a lack or a dishonest type of communication. So that's definitely a deal breaker for me.
completely. That's great.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's just good to know, right?
Yeah. What's your deal breakers?
Um, an active addiction of any kind.
Oh, that
Uh,
one. Yes.
yeah, I don't want to be involved. It's fine if someone is recovering addict, and if they've been on a recovering plan. I just dissolved like probably the love of my life, relationship last year because of an active addiction. And it was brutal, but that really is a deal breaker for me. Abuse of any kind to me or my family. And I forgot what my third one is. Huh, I probably should figure that one out. But
We're kind of putting on the spot. So,
yeah, those are the 2 biggies for me. It's like I'm very clear. I have a tendency. I love addicts, ex-addicts. I love people that have been down in the dirt and crawled their way back out. Yeah. But only if they've done equally as much, personal development, right, as they have spent time within that addiction. So.
yeah, and are like, yeah, passion. I would agree with the addiction. I grew up with that around me, so I'm very sensitive to someone that would. I don't mind if someone has a drink here, like does things here and there,
Yeah.
or has like a healthy balance. Like I either need that or sober. So
Yeah, and
that's
I'm
why,
talking like addict, like, yeah,
yeah,
that's where
yeah,
it's not unhealthy addictions. We all have addictions, but like where it's a problem, that's just a no.
yeah, yeah. I'm sure you can detect that pretty quickly now.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm gonna pick a card from the moon deck. I always pick one. We have to get you one if you'd like one. We'd love to send you a deck. I don't know if you have one yet.
I don't, but I would love one.
Yeah, we yeah, we'll get one to you. So in these Intuit talks, we started these conversations when COVID hit, and we've been like pretty consistent for almost a year now. And I'm deciding
Wow.
whether to wind it down. Um, so yeah, it's been great to do it and offer something. So yeah, so everyone who's here, just take a couple deep breaths as I shuffle the cards from the moon deck, and you can set an intention if you wish, or just be open to receive. All right, we're gonna go for 2 cards
Oh,
today. The first one we got says, I forgive and let go with loving ease.
Oh, so good.
I forgive and let go with loving ease.
Mm.
Yeah. And then the second one is the owl that says, there is medicine in my shadow.
Oh, that's so true.
There's medicine in my shadow. We have 9 animals in the deck, so this is the owl. There's medicine in my shadow, and I forgive and let go with loving ease. I feel like that's such a perfect combination for you with this conversation. What can you say about there is medicine in my shadow and or I forgive and let go with loving ease?
This is so good. It's so perfect because right now it's very randomly. I've had 3 readings in the past 2 months that were scheduled like months ago. And all of them say that I'm in a cycle of death right now, and that after that's a rebirth. But what that reminds me of is really facing those parts of myself that either I'm embarrassed, I can't accepting parts of myself of things I did in the past. You know, even those little remnants. I've done the big chunks, but all the little ones. And really, when I read, I let go and forgive. It's really about forgiving myself, right? That's the first place that um, I'm looking at right now, and realizing that in my shadow is really the blessing. When I talked about the people pleaser, that's a part of a shadow. Also, what I've been learning actually this year about the shadow, there's also blessings in the shadow. So it's anything that you keep underground. Okay, it's not the negative things. It is also your light, you know, your vibrance, your energy. You know, Marianne Williamson says, you know, it's not the things that, what does she say, that quote? You know, it's not the things that terrify us are that we're powerless. It's that we are powerful. So those also lie in the shadow. And I've been dancing through those lately, is where are those unexpressed parts of myself that have been lurking and hiding in the shadow when I've been so focused on healing the what I consider gnarly parts, right? Yeah. So that's
In
what
the
it.
shadow, it makes me think again to the earlier part that this is so a part of the feminine is the dark, deep under soul work. Like, who is it? Who has a book here? I can't remember his name, but he talks about how soul is like the underworld and spirit is the ascended. Like spirit's what we all have in common.
Yeah.
Soul is like our personal brand, our personal
Ooh,
logo, and the
yeah.
deep soul work. And then ego is like in the earth realm in the center, assuming it's a
Yes.
mature, healthy ego, and that these all kind of play a part. And that feels very feminine to me because it makes me think of the figure 8 and this dance that like of how that balance and then of course forgiving ourselves. I forgive and let go with loving ease is like, yeah, forgiving ourselves. I've had to do a lot of forgiveness work to release resentment and bitterness that was in me that then made me make choices that just came back to me, like hurt me in the end. So that's been big work for me, is clearing resentment and seeing how it affects my self-worth, which then that affects everything else in my life. And then there's medicine in my shadow. I mean, the greatest poets and musicians and artists and business owners and like come from this realm. And as you say about harvesting the wisdom from our shadow, harvesting the wisdom from our experiences is, and then, of course, owls are nocturnal. So it's our ability to sense even in the dark.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
it. So beautiful. Thank you. I
Thank you
love
so
that.
much for being here. I don't know if maybe there's a couple questions. I know there's a lot of comments jumping around here. Hopefully you've seen all the love coming your way.
Mm.
So if anyone has any last minute questions, and then for you, Suzy, if there's anything you want to announce that's coming up or ways for people to be in touch with you. I'm in her Alive OS right now. I'm not in Alive Abundance is the other one. So maybe that comes next for me.
Yeah,
But it's incredible.
I think you'd enjoy Alive Abundance because I based it on the 7 Hermetic laws. So we
Ooh,
really go into a lot of Hermeticism, which I
oh my
think you'd probably dig.
You're my spirit animal, Suzy. I'm so excited because honestly, like it's been intense growing a business. It's been intense.
Yeah. It's
It's been a lot
intense.
of highs and lows, and my partner's leaving now, and that's been going on for a lot. I don't want to say too much about that, but there's just a lot going on right now. And yeah, I just feel so happy to have someone who is in that realm, because it's my friends are either that or like way into the wellness. It's kind of these separate things, and I'm bringing it together. And I don't feel like there's a lot of examples to emulate out there who have built something real and sustainable and profitable and successful and inspired and in flow, like all those things, while doing all this other deep work and finding a way to bring it together. I'm just so excited that it's possible.
Yeah, and I didn't think about it, honestly, I think I just got on Instagram 2 years ago. Like everybody kept saying, oh, you should be a brand. And I was just like, that's number one, that's so gross, like I can't even stand the thought of that. And my friend JP Sears, he's getting a lot of flack lately, but he's an amazing guy. I remember asking him, I said, he's so humble. And I remember saying, like, how are you a brand, but you just don't seem egoic about it? You're just, how do you do that? And he said, whenever you've been given the gifts that you've been given, like it's really selfish to keep them to yourself and not share. And I was just like, oh my gosh, you're right. So that's when I just started coming out and speaking up. But before that, I was happy just being a closet spiritual woo-woo business leader. It's like, this is just the way I ran my business. It's what worked. And I wasn't doing it for anyone else other than just cohesion in my own life and parts retrieving and bringing all parts of myself back together. And if you wanted to work with a company, you just knew that's the environment that we were in. You didn't have to. We have all religions, which I love. We have Buddhists, we have Hindus, we have really conservative Christians. To me, it's a very inclusive environment, but it's all spirituality is really the same. It's all based on energy, and the principles are all the same. So, yeah, I love being able to share information that I've gathered in the ways that I've been able to cope in business and that have helped me become more of a cohesive, authentic individual, right? Running a business because it's hard, as you said it, like it's really, really, really tough. It'll be the biggest challenge, but also it's the biggest opportunity for growth that you'll probably ever have other than children. If you, so, and it's people's choice whether they want to raise children or not, but don't disillusion yourself that a business is any easier to raise than a child. Like they're the same. They're really, you have to nurture, you have to care for it, you have to make sure it lives, you have to make sure that it's happy, you have to make sure that it grows up, you have to make sure you use the same principles that you use in rearing a child that you do in a business. And for people to think that it's anything other than that, I just don't understand how it happens.
Mm,
Yeah.
that's an amazing way to look at it. I felt a shift in me as you said that. Do you think, one more question as you're saying that, do you think if you were who you are now in the way that you're operating, you could have grown what you grew then and still had that same level of success?
No. No. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's because I wanted it for different reasons. It was that whole what I was manifesting is my own unworthiness. So it never could have grown to the size because I was so deeply unworthy and I wanted that to fulfill me so that I could be something, which really, when it never happened, when all the businesses kept failing or not working, all that was doing is reconfirming that feedback loop that I was unworthy. Rather than I've done so much work on actually being worthy, which is such a ridiculous concept. A tree probably doesn't think that, it's just like, boom, right? A tree is just like here, like, hello.
I feel like I think it's a virus, like a mental, spiritual virus.
Completely. And knowing that that's not me and not what it was, but I don't believe I would ever achieved the level of success because of where my intentions and the way I needed it.
Do you
was.
think it's possible to achieve success from this place that we're talking about?
The place where you're whole within yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because what is success? So that's another thing. What do you consider success? I have values. My values are like, peace, happiness, abundance, love, integrity, so like regardless of what's in my bank account, where I live, where I travel, what I have on, that's what I consider successful. So that's what I put my focus on. Can I be true? Can I be authentic? Can I uh, do what turns me on and go towards beauty and passion? Those are some of my other values. So if I'm true to all of those particular values, then I am a success. And I don't need the outside world to tell me because I'm fulfilled by the things that truly are valuable to me. Like you can have a picture. I just gave my daughter a picture of my grandmother with her and a baby with this like dime store frame with still half the tag of what it cost on the back. It was on sale, this frame. And she cherishes it because that's a value to her. Okay. So, it's really thinking about what do you truly value? Um, and that way, it's a shortcut to success. Then you're already a success. Anything that comes on top of it, which is more money or whatever, is icing on that cake, but you're already inherently have a core of success
Mm-hmm.
operating.
Mm-hmm. I love that.
It's a shortcut
Yeah.
because that's never
Yeah.
going to make you happy anyway.
Yeah, it is a shortcut.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thanks for taking one for the team, or few for the team.
Well, it was very selfish, I'll tell you. It was just to get myself out of pain and misery.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to eat up your time. I mean, you're welcome to answer any of the questions that are coming here, but I also understand we've been here for a bit. Totally up to you if you want to scroll through. And
Do you ever struggle from fear of being truly seen? Oh my God. All the time. I, Someone pitched me an ad campaign where I was going to be completely naked. And I was like, oh my God, what is that? I'm in a songwriting class and I have a lot of trauma around singing. My dad was a musician, and so I get a little weepy even thinking about it. Me being seen as this person that can't sing. I've been purposefully leaving my friends happy birthday singing messages that are really bad to just be seen. Um, and being seen as not perfect. It's like this is the way my voice is at this moment. So, but yeah, I struggle. I don't know if it's a fear of being seen. It's just, um, yeah, it feels scary. It feels scary to be exposed, and vulnerable. And I have a commitment to that. So I'm just going to keep showing up.
mm.
So that's what someone asked. So that was a good one. What would your advice be to a woman starting her own business? Realize that everyone's out to help you. There's this myth. My ex-husband called me a couple of weeks ago and he goes, you know what, you're so right. You used to always say everybody wants to help you and that people aren't out to get you and that business isn't competitive. And I'm like, that's true. And he's like, everybody wants to help me. And I'm like, exactly. So ask for help and realize that people are there for you to succeed. They want you to succeed. It's kind of selfish. They want to be a part of your success story, but who cares? It's take it and also use the fact that you're starting a business to your advantage. When you get more successful like me, I can't get on the phone and be like, I'm a struggling new business. Can you help me out? Like I don't have um, that pitch anymore, but use that pitch, okay? And not to manipulate people, but to tell people the truth. I'm small, I can't afford that in my budget right now. Is there anything you can do? Do you know alternative ways? Use what you consider a weakness. I just started, I don't have a lot of finances flowing through, whatever, paint it red and say, listen, I don't have a lot of finances and I really want to do something. Do you have any ideas on how I can do it? They'll introduce you to a friend who has a friend, or people want to help. So that'd be my advice.
Mm-hmm. It's
Yeah.
great advice.
And if it's meant to live, it will. And if it's not, it won't.
Yeah, I had so many projects that kind of had their success in their moment, in their bubble, and then
Yeah,
with the Moon Deck and the we have a growing product line, just kind of grew legs, and here we are. We'll see what happens. I mean,
exactly. Some of them work and some of them don't. Okay.
yeah.
Just don't be attached to, try to not be attached to the outcome, and realize that you'll grow it as long as you can grow it, and you'll ride it as long as you can. Yeah.
Oof,
Well,
yeah.
thank you so much. It's been so much fun. I
Yes.
appreciate you. I appreciate you having me on. What an honor.
Thank you so
And
much, Suzy, for being here. And I just, yeah, thank you so much for being here. I know everyone will get a lot out of it, and we'll keep the recording up on our page. Feel free to put your daughter-in-law's info or whatever you want to put up there. And
okay.
yeah, I will definitely see you tomorrow night in class. I'm so
Yes.
excited.
I'm excited. Every time I go through a live OS, I just get worked, man. It just works me. So
I have that too. When I wrote the Moon Deck, that happened with certain cards. They'd get really flared up in my life. Like this, they're like, "Oh, you believe in that? Let me like test you." And I was like, "Jesus Christ!" Yeah,
I know. That's what. Remember, I told you, Gay said mastery has sharp edges. Like,
it
okay,
does.
here we
I wouldn't
go.
have it any other way.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Have a great day, love.
Thank you, Suzy. Bye,
Okay. Bye bye.
everyone. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. That was such an exciting conversation for me. I love Suzy, obviously. Felt really honored to have her here. So I'll put the replay on our page. Please go there and tag your friends, whoever you think this conversation will help. Thank you so much for being here. And next week, you will have me, myself, and I for Intuit Talks at 12 p.m. PST next Wednesday. And we'll be going into the Moon Deck, into conversations around ritualizing emotional, spiritual, mental well-being, and of course, intuition. So see you next week. Let us know if you have any questions. My name's Arana again, and I will see you all soon.